Hi everyone, thank you very much for tuning in. Woody the Waterballer here. We're going to take a look at the 26th card popularity snapshot. This is a snapshot that I do every end of season to try to get a good idea for the cards and decks that are performing really well at the top of the ladder. There are some limitations to this data, so you got to take it with a grain of salt. If players switch their battle decks out, you won't necessarily be able to see what they're using, and the top of the ladder is a little bit different from what you might expect down lower in the rungs of the ladder, or even in challenges, because the cards aren't necessarily upgraded to the highest level possible, and there is a couple of extra minutes of overtime in challenges. But overall, this is a very good objective look at the decks and cards that are having success for the best players in the game. And so with that, let's take a look now at the cards. Thanks to our friends over at Starfire for pulling the data, and the stream discussion of these cards begins now. The log remains up top, way above any other card, in use by over half of all decks, guys. Half of all decks have got the log in it. It suffered a placement bug, a nerf, and a relatively unfavorable metagame. There are a lot of swarmy cards out there, but Beatdown had been really popular for a super long time. So that makes it kind of even more surprising that the log has been able to hold that top spot. It's just such a cycly, high damaging card that it's hard not to use it in the deck, especially if you've got it to a good level. You really only need it to be about one level below the rest of your cards, and it can work out pretty well. Kappa, Kappa, Kappa. Thanks for that, boy CR. We got a cheer in the chat. The next card that we're going to take a look at here are Skeletons. They're no longer seen in half of all decks, and so they've dropped down a little bit in usage, but they're still very valuable in control decks. They also do extremely well in beatdown decks just to facilitate that cycle. Once again, cheap cards are very, very valuable in decks whenever you need to be able to get back to your win condition. The most popular win condition now is the Hog Rider. He's the star of the snapshot in my opinion. He rose up very high through the ranks, guys. He is super high up there. He used to like not play well with the giant and with goblins, but now he definitely does. He's in pretty much every conceivable beatdown and control deck archetype. I've even seen him played in mortar decks at some point, so he works well in siege also. The Hog Rider is an absolute terror. Even if you're not able to cycle him very quickly, players have found lots of great ways to incorporate him into beatdown decks, using a giant to bust up whatever building might be in the way, and then using the Hog Rider to clear the path. Even Inferno Tower is having trouble shutting those down. Inferno Tower really works well against like one big tank, like a Golem or a Lava Hound or a Giant or a Bowler, but it can't really perform well if there's a Lightning in the attacker's deck or if there are additional support troops behind it. The Hog Rider is a pretty great support troop, and Zap and Electro Wizard give a lot of difficulty to the Inferno Towers on defense. So, despite the popularity of beatdown decks and the rise of Inferno Tower usage, I definitely expect these cards to be able to shut down those types of attacks and remain popular for a little while going into the future. Zap did dip a little bit in usage because the Electro Wizard is rising in usage overall. The ability to zap, zap, zap many, many times is fantastic. It's probably the best counter-attacking troop in the game. And some of my friends in the top competitive circles are saying that Electro Wizard might actually be the best legendary card in the game. Electro Wizard or Log? It's up to you. Let me know what you think in the comments below. The Knight proves that Chivalry isn't dead, though. He is rising ever, ever higher. You can actually see him in the daily deck over on the right side of the overlay, thanks to the subreddit moderators for adding that in there. It looks like a Hog Goblin Logbait Swarm deck. Knight is just an amazing tanky troop that can hit relatively hard. He holds off the smaller type attacks and can chop through skeletons, goblins, no problem at all. He's a really good guy to add into those decks to give you a little bit more tanky, beefy stats on the back end, but he also works well in like 3 Musketeers. We've seen him paired up with the Miner quite frequently to make the 3 Musketeers deck a little bit more viable in the current metagame. They've been making a little bit of a comeback at the expense of the single Musketeer. Apparently she likes to hang out with the group instead of just going alone. But taking a look over at a daily deck on the right side, the Goblin Gang and Skeleton Army, not pictured there, are both doing very, very well. The Log Bait decks are real. Even though Log is extremely popular right now, there's a lot of decks that try to punish their opponent's use of the Log by dropping as many Swarm troops as possible They've suffered a little bit thanks to the uptick in usage of troops that have splash damage mechanics. The Baby Dragon, Poison, and Princess are examples of that. Graveyard and Bowler is another very common deck archetype at the very top of the ladder. It actually saw a little bit of a dip in usage, but as you can see in the suggested deck lists here, it is still the most popular deck list overall at the top of the ladder. Graveyard Bowler works very, very well with Poison, Tornado to get a lot of splash damage onto defending troops, and then uses Knight, Skeletons, Electro Wizard as the support behind the Bowler to be able to knock down whatever troops the defender sets up to try to stop the attack. Giant has fallen a lot. We talked about him a lot in the previous Snapshot because he was the most popular win condition, a big, popular, tanky guy. He was getting all the ladies, he was having a lot of fun, but his heyday may soon be over. It was March of the Giant and April of the Hog Rider because Giant just could not stack up against the rest of the tanks in the game and compete with the other really popular win conditions that we saw out there. Speaking of really popular win conditions, Lava Hound Balloon held on to its popularity, didn't rise or fall very much in the rankings overall. If you like playing air decks and you like trying to punish opponents who only have a few ways to hit flying troops, Lava Balloon is still one of the best ways to do that. Battle Ram and Bandit actually made a little bit of an appearance in this last Snapshot. In fact, together we saw a Battle Bandit control deck utilizing Inferno Tower to defend, and then adding in Goblin Gang, Poison, the Log, Miner, and Electro Wizard, all very high value, easily cycled, and big damaging splash damage cards. I guess take the Miner out of that last list. He doesn't do splash damage, but pretty much all of them deal a lot of damage in a very short amount of time. Miner Poison is one of the most reliable sources of damage for the Elixir invested in the game, and so they are working very well in tandem. The Royal Giant, however, is out of here, guys. He is still very popular in the kind of like 2,500 to 4,000, maybe even up to 5,000 later in the season trophy range, but he is nowhere near that popular higher up in the ladder. In fact, he was at 0 usage in this card popularity snapshot. The Royal Giant, out of here. Executioner, out of here. Players are really turning to Bowler instead of Executioner now for these top cards. And so it might seem like a good opportunity for the X-Bow to get a lot of play in, but that just wasn't the case. X-Bow and Mortar, the two siege buildings that I've come to know and love, are actually still really way far down in the rankings overall. Unfortunate for them, but hey, that's just how it goes. Lastly, Tombstone and Furnace are not very much used anymore either. Furnace wasn't seen at all, and Tombstone has dipped way far down in the rankings. We actually saw the Elixir Collector kind of supplanting it in a lot of decks that are competing for that like one card spot to boost up your ability to generate bigger pushes. Elixir Collector is more expensive, but it was getting the value in a lot more cases. I think that the Lava Hound Balloon Beatdown deck that we saw highlighted here is a great example of that. Lava Hound Balloon quite often played Tombstone, but there is a new archetype now for Lava Balloon that relies more upon Elixir Collector for big, heavy beatdown attacks. So with that, that's the list of the cards that we're going to take a look at. The deck lists is a separate beast entirely. I'll touch on the ones that we haven't discussed yet. Graveyard Bowler is an example of that. Graveyard Bowler, we did talk about that earlier, is doing very, very well right now. It dipped a little bit in usage, but improvements in players' Electro Wizard levels and just the heavy assault of an unending Bowler Graveyard combo coming at you is very difficult to be able to repulse. It's got good, solid defensive options, namely with the Bowler to be able to repel ground-based attacks. Then Knight and Baby Dragon are kind of the fundamental like 3-4 elixir cards that you play on defense to be able to stop mid-sized swarms or heavier troops that the Bowler has a little bit of difficulty with. Skeletons for the easy cycle, and you can actually choose between Mega Meganin or Electro Wizard. Electro Wizard's kind of becoming this like pitch hitter, where if you don't know necessarily which card you want to add to the deck on the support front, you can add an Electro Wizard in. He's competing with Musketeer and Mega Minion in a lot of situations, and is favoring is being favored quite well against them. Hog Rider Log Bait Control is another example of a deck that's doing quite well. We saw that in the daily deck list over on the right side of the subreddit, making use of a lot of really cheapo cards: Goblin Gang, Goblin Barrel, Skeleton Army, Princess, all 3 elixir cost. They're able to get the swarms up very, very fast and get a tower down to punish hard an opponent who invests too much elixir in one lane or spends their splash damage in a way that doesn't help them out. So Giant Hog Rider beatdown does still have a pretty solid spot up at the top. Hog Rider being incorporated into a lot of the decks, as we mentioned earlier. The Trifecta deck also performing quite well. Hog Rider, Musketeer, and Knight now. We've seen the Hog Rider and Musketeer paired up with Valkyrie, with Ice Golem, and now Knight is the third instantiation of this deck. And it works decently well. I haven't played with it a whole lot myself. But the Tornado Zap Fireball spell combination is certainly an interesting setup. The Tornado Fireball or Zap Fireball is pretty much enough to take out any medium-sized troops, and you've got the help of a Musketeer and a Knight on the back end to be able to chop through whatever remains. The Musketeer beatdown we talked a little bit about earlier. Miner and Musketeer, or excuse me, Miner and Knight are the two tanks that are often used in the deck. Skeletons or Ice Spirits to be able to cycle, while you can pick either Goblin Gang or Fire Spirits to either get a little bit more splash damage or pressure into one lane or the other. Golem beatdown is suffering a little bit, but it's still one of the top tier decks used by 10 of the top 200 players. Golem, the Log, Skeletons, Elixir Collector, Mega Minion, Baby Dragon, Lightning. We're actually going to see an example of this game right after the discussion of the top decks. The Lava Hound Balloon beatdown deck archetypes have been kind of split into two. There are about 18 appearances, so it is one of the most popular deck archetypes overall, but there were two kind of distinct ways of playing the deck. They both had Lava Hound Balloon and Mega Minion, but they varied in their approach to big, heavy beatdown strikes. The top one has got Elixir Collector, Skeletons, Baby Dragon, Fireball, and Zap. And the bottom one, which is kind of more swarm-oriented, utilizes Tombstone to help build up really big attacks while activating the Skeleton Army, Minions as the Swarm Troop to support the Lava Hound Balloon push, and using Lightning and Arrows to be able to take out any big obstacles that are in the Lava Hound's way of reaching the tower. Expo Siege has been very successful, but not as much in previous tournaments. It's still being used up at the top of the ladder, though. 8 appearances of it, and they were pretty much all the same deck archetype, as you can see here. Expo, Inferno Tower, Log, Ice Golem still in use there. Fireball, Mega Minion, Archers, and Ice Spirit. Hog Gob Swarm is very similar to this other Hog Log Bait deck that we saw up at the top, but it is uniquely Goblins, doesn't rely upon the Skeleton Army at all. And Gob Swarm is kind of similar to that as well, just doesn't have a Hog Rider in it. The Bandit Battle Ram Control deck is very interesting. We talked about that a little bit earlier in the stream. Works extremely well in tournament settings. We saw that played a lot actually during Clash Wars this past weekend. The Giant Minion Horde beatdown has been falling, but it still had 5 appearances, so it deserves a shout-out. 3 Musketeer Hog Rider beatdown is kind of a new archetype that we haven't seen a whole lot of. It's like a combination between control and beatdown in a sort of weird way, but I like it. It's an innovative deck, and it seems to be rising up slightly on the ladder. Lastly, I want to give a shout-out to all the new subscribers that we have on my Twitch channel. Big thanks to all of you guys who have been Day 1 subscribers. They are Odin, Fleet, Ben Elmore, Cicero, Greenstar, Jay Degner, Gus, Clashera, Borgie Squad, T-Wrong No T-Right, Zachary, Stormclouds, Nightlight, Hazard, Boink, Canadian Bacon, Matty Ramrods, It's Fyrix, Omega Fun, Zeta Scuves, Hyphonics, Night Fury, King Kevin, Oxalate, and Phone Cats. With that, let's take a look real quick at a game. A lot of people have been asking for gameplay of the Mortar decks that I've been using, and also taking a look at some of the top ladder decks. So I actually did manage to encounter one of those in this series of the Grand Challenge that I was playing. So let's take a look at it now. This is the Mortar Cycle deck versus Golem beatdown, utilizing Baby Dragon and Electro Wizard as the support troops on the back end. While this match plays, I think I'm going to scroll back through the Twitch chat real quick and see who we got stopping by to say hi. Any questions asked during it. Decro says, Woody, whoever wrote this card Snapshot must be a good streamer. Thank you very much. That's kind of you to say. Boink says, Woody, would the Red Alpha Clan family like another streamer to help adds to the lineup? I heard Boink is doing very well, and he's an up-and-coming streamer. Yeah, man. We'd definitely be interested in checking that out. We have got in the works a team to build over here on Twitch, the Reddit Alpha team, Alpha Esports team, I think we might be calling it. So thanks for the question there. Skadane says, Woody, what's your gamer tag? I want to add you on Starfire. My tag, you can see in my profile. It's a public tag. I don't want to open it right now because I'm in the middle of a game. But you can check it out by going to the clan Reddit Alpha and taking a look, see what my player profile says there. Boink, we would like to have you as an additional streamer. And shout out to T-Wrong No T-Rob. I'm told now that the game sound is a little bit loud, so sorry about that. Let me turn that down just a little tiny bit. Where you don't want to overwhelm the ears there. But as you can see here, we're playing against this Golem deck. We've actually done a really good job of defending and preventing any big attacks from coming on in. I've been a little bit elixir inefficient, but pressuring an opponent who is playing a big, heavy beatdown deck is very important, especially in the first couple of minutes of the match where they don't have the opportunity to build up those gigantic 20 elixir pushes that can be really devastating to you. You can see 8 Rand is starting here with a Golem on the right side. My recommended play when they drop a Golem or another big heavy tank on one side is to pressure the opposite lane. So that's what I do here with the mortar. Even though I've dealt most of the damage already to the right side tower, I want to try to get the damage in over on the left and turn this into a 2-1 if absolutely necessary. And otherwise, just trying to make this a 1-0 by defending what I can over on the right here. You can see we lost one of our archers on defense there to the Mega Minion that was swooping on in, but the Skeletons, Knight, Archers, and Tower combo have done an amazing job at being able to chop down the remaining troops there. Excellent tech you just saw there from the Ice Spear, being able to hop onto both the Baby Dragon and the Electro Wizard to give them a little bit of freeze to make sure that the Archers had time enough to shoot them down. Here we go, back on the counter assault now. Mortar set up to defend against the remainder of this attack. This is actually a pretty good opportunity right now to rocket. If you want to place a defensive rocket, that's certainly a viable option. Whenever they have a Baby Dragon, Electro Wizard, Skeletons all stacking up on top of each other, especially if you can hit the Golem or some Golemites in the mix as well. A defensive rocket works very well, but I did want to save onto the rocket in this specific game because I knew that that right side tower was going to be able to go down with just one more rocket. We were able to do 493 damage to one tower in one fell swoop, taking the game in a 1-0 against Grand in this matchup. But thank you very much for everyone who tuned in to watch the card popularity snapshot video. I hope that you will subscribe to me if you want to see more. Let me know down in the comments if you have any questions about the decks or cards that we discussed today. I hope that you will tune in to Twitch chat on Tuesday and Thursday nights starting at 7 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time, so you can get involved in all this craziness going on up here. Otherwise, I also stream Steal the Crown Wednesday nights at 9 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. You can add me on Plex Chat with the invite code BUKAX to get a chance at hundreds of dollars of prizes available. Otherwise, I hope that you'll like this video and share it with your friends. I had a lot of fun compiling this card popularity snapshot. Check the links in the description down below and you'll be able to get more information about the card popularity snapshot, where it gets published, how often it gets published, and where to get more information about the Clash Royale metagame. Till next time, guys, Woody the Mortar Mauler signing out. All right, my friends.